In my previous videos, I have footage of one flat earther after another admitting to the fact that they have no accurate working model of the flat earth.
I don't believe that the AE map is correct at all.
I don't think that the Gleasons or that map, I don't think that's a real projection. I think we're still trying to figure out exactly what it is, but I'm pretty convinced it's a circle, and I'm pretty convinced the continents are misshapen and kind of in the right area, but kind of not, and need to be twisted around, and then we've got it.
We don't have accurate, reliable information as far as our world looks.
So why am I talking flat Earth? Well, it's because I wanted to start from a place of certainty. And to me, it's a certainty. So as of today, even though I'm certain I really don't know what the Earth is, I certainly know what it isn't. It's not a globe.
We don't have any accurate maps in a sense that they accurately represent the face of the Earth, like a snapshot of the face of the Earth.
In the AE map, the farther you get with each ring, each concentric ring moving out from A towards B, C, D, E, the more distorted the map becomes.
If you've been following what's been happening lately in the flat Earth, everybody knows that there's problems with the map.
Hello everybody, Steiner here. Welcome to Controversy Central, where we take on controversies that really matter. In light of these and many more confessions by flat earthers of the amazing fact that they have no working model to show others that the flat earth they want everyone to believe in actually exists, it's not surprising to find that many in the flat earth community are working hard to remedy this situation. But others fantasize that they have no need to do so, at least not until the globe earthers manage to come up with a working model of their own, since, as far as they understand, this has not yet happened, and in fact simply cannot happen, since whatever shape the Earth is, it is most certainly not a globe. But there has been at least one notable exception to this, the former flat earther Tiger Dan 925. And I say former since, as far as I know, his last public statement on this matter was a flat-out rejection of both the flat Earth and globe Earth models. If anyone has any further information that contradicts what my current understanding is, or that contradicts any part of the following analysis, please let me know in the comments below so I can correct the record and adjust my analysis if and where necessary. Tiger Dan approached his map-making project from the viewpoint of a person who was totally convinced the Earth is flat.
This map is called the azimuthal projection. It's a flat Earth map, and it's not to scale, and all the sizes of the countries are skewed, and they don't fit any kind of scale at all. And critics of the flat Earth are saying that the flat Earth isn't true because flights from Sydney, Australia, which would be up here somewhere, down to Santiago, Chile, take 12 hours, yet when they add the distance up between the two, it becomes an impossibility because you can't cover that great a distance in 12 hours when it takes 8 hours to fly from London, which is there, to New York, which is there. So they say that the flat Earth is wrong because of that. It isn't. This map's just a painting. It's not anything to scale.
He understood that for him to create the flat Earth map that he wanted, and to do so digitally, he would need to start by modeling a flat plane in the shape of a disc. He came up with one similar to the one he had just rejected. The main difference that I could see was a temporary lack of landmass. He was also convinced that the Earth is not only flat, but that it's also a disc. I'm not sure, but it's very possible that he believed, like many flat earthers, that this disc resides inside a square or an infinite plane. Whatever the case may be, he designed his model to reflect the idea that human habitation on the flat surface of the Earth is bounded by a circular ice wall that is somewhat irregularly shaped.
Are all skewed and it just doesn't work, so we need to get rid of all maps because nothing is to scale, and this is where I come in. So what I'm attempting to do here is to create the most accurate and to scale map. It's a flat earth map, and as you can see, the outer edges are a bit jagged, and I don't quite know what to do with the outer edges. We know it's surrounded by ice, so I'll probably just leave it like that around the edge. Now you'll notice that there's dots on here as well. It's a bit of a blank canvas at the moment, and these dots are randomly placed, but they will be put there precisely when I've worked out the distances. So roughly speaking, these 3 dots here represent 3 international airports in England. You've got Glasgow at the top, Manchester in the middle, and London Heathrow at the bottom there. And what I'm working to on this map is 100 miles for every millimetre. So I'm way off on this because I've just randomly placed these dots at the moment. So 100 miles per millimetre, that's the scale that we're working to. Bear with me here because this will get interesting in a moment. Now, what I can do is, when these are accurately placed, these dots, the airports, the international airports are accurately in position, what I can do is I can bring over a map of England, keeping the same aspect ratio, and I can resize the map of England to fit exactly those known airports.
So, as you just saw in this last clip, he made a major error at this point that pretty much guaranteed ambiguity and imprecision of the results of his efforts, while somewhat obscuring the real reason for the failure of his project. As I began to watch his videos, it appeared to me that he had chosen to use a regular coordinate system, since I noticed that he had included longitude and latitude lines, placing them within the ice wall perimeter of his flat Earth model. And I must admit that when I first started watching his map-making videos, with the commonly seen longitude and latitude lines prominently on display, I assumed, since he had clearly stated time and again that this was to be a precision map with precision-placed airport locations, that he must be using the conventional coordinates for these airports so as to place them precisely where they belonged. In fact, because I did, I labored for a while under the false impression that he was, in fact, about to add reference numbers and directional indicators, north, south, east, and west, to his map. This would have made it possible for him to place his markers for airports in precise locations around his model Earth based on the easily obtainable coordinates that can be found online for every major airport. It actually took a while for me to realize that he had no intention of using these lines of longitude and latitude. He ignored them completely and did not use them to position on his flat Earth model any of the airports he had chosen. I'm not exactly sure why he even bothered to produce those lines, but I do know I won't bother to speculate. So that left me scratching my head and going back over what I had already heard him say throughout his videos, looking to discover his real course of action when plotting locations. Then it finally dawned on me that not only had he completely jettisoned the conventional coordinate system used in map making, but he had also rejected the use of any feasible coordinate system whatsoever. Instead, he decided to develop a laborious system of his own for placing his various chosen airports in positions that he thought to be the most precise possible. He called that system triangulation. He was certain that the meticulous application of this system would allow him to map the world with great precision. His goal was to place each airport on his flat Earth computer model in such a way that that airport would be one of the 3 corners or vertices of any triangle formed with any other 2 airports. This should allow him to correctly position each airport on the map. As he noted, this was a very time-consuming process. It actually took him weeks to do, when it would only have taken him a few hours had he used the coordinate system. And then he gave up when he saw that the numbers didn't work on a flat Earth model. Now, for anyone watching this video who has the same notion that Tiger Dan had, that a coordinate system is not necessary for mapping the Earth, please let me explain why it is. I know this is of fundamental importance and is helpful to understand for anyone wanting to follow my next few experiments. In explaining this, I am hoping to have people at least come away with a clear understanding of that fact, even though I am by no means an expert in this field. So to those who are experts, please help me out by giving me pointers in the comments below, so that if I omit important basic information or introduce factual error in any of what I have to say, I will be able to correct it. And for the majority of you who already know this, please bear with me while I attempt to explain this reality to those who have a problem understanding the fact that having a workable coordinate system actually is a necessity when developing a map. A number of geographic coordinate systems have been developed over the years in various places around the world, one of which has become the world standard of today. And the World Geodetic System, specifically its iteration of 1984, called the WGS-84, is that standard. And it is also the system upon which our global positioning system is based. Still, for certain purposes, some countries use other systems that fulfill specific functions, though they are generally compatible at some level with the WGS-84. I said all this to say that we do already have an internationally recognized coordinate system in place that does allow us to find the specific location of any particular feature on the surface of the Earth, as it is in relation to any other specific location. This makes it possible to use information from around the world in creating world maps and such like. It is not necessary, though it may be possible, to invent yet another such system. And should one be developed, it must agree with and be compatible with the current systems because of the simple fact that apart from some cataclysmic event destroying and reshaping some part of the Earth, everything has its set place, and that place has already been identified by the current systems. Though we are still fine-tuning these systems and, where possible, updating them at the most precise levels of measurement to take into consideration the movement of the Earth's crust due to plate tectonics, the current coordinate system and its related geodetic systems, for most purposes, is more than adequate. This I intend to demonstrate in my next few videos. I will now present a simple, maybe even overly simple, demonstration to illustrate the usefulness of a coordinate system. For the common everyday checkerboard used around the world by both chess and checker players, international panels have agreed upon two very different but totally compatible coordinate systems for identifying the position of each square on the board. The International Checkers Convention is by far the simpler of the two. Nevertheless, should you think that simpler is necessarily better, consider the fact that the adoption of this convention by chess players would be complicated by other factors, such as the need to interpolate the positions of half the squares when using the Checkers Convention. Here they are, side by side. As you can see, these are two very different systems for identifying the squares on the very same flat plane. Either system could be expanded or shrunk down to accommodate any size of flat plane laid out as a checkerboard. I would like to draw your attention to a couple of interesting things here. The first is the fact that the notation system used by the American Checkers Federation for identifying the locations of squares uses the numbers 1 to 32, beginning with the number 1 at the bottom right dark square on the checkerboard as seen by the black player. They number every dark square from right to left in each row sequentially, ending with the number 32 at the top left dark square. This can be seen as a coordinate system in that each numbered square occupies a particular position on the board that can be identified as a uniquely located spot related to the x-axis and that corresponds with a uniquely located spot related to the y-axis. For instance, for the black player, the number 7 is in the 5th row of squares from the right and the 2nd row of squares up. No other square, numbered or not, can occupy that location. The second thing that needs to be noted is that the notation system used by FIDE, the World Chess Federation, has its own unique set of coordinates, totally different from that of the official checkers system, to identify that very same square. Looking at the chessboard, we see that for the white player, that same position in the 5th row of squares from the right and the 2nd row of squares up is identified by the coordinates d2. And that square is also identified as the starting position of the queen's pawn. No other set of coordinates can be used in the FIDE notification system to identify that square. This means that for any new system to be useful in identifying any particular square in that flat plane, it would also need to be able to be cross-referenced to either of these two systems. Should, for instance, someone create a new system of notification for chess and arbitrarily identify the location in the current official system that is the king's home square as now being the home square of the queen's knight, his system would immediately be rejected as inadequate and misleading, as it misidentifies a particular square. The king's home square can never become the home square of the queen's knight. To make this change would totally change the game of chess. As you can see, we do not have the option of playing fast and loose with locations of identifiable features on a flat plane. They are where they are, and as far as locations on the Earth are concerned, even if it were a plane, they cannot be moved from where they are relative to one another. These locations have already been recognized and acknowledged by designated coordinates stemming from the use of already existing and harmonious coordinate systems. So all of Australia cannot be plunked into the South Pacific Ocean at a location in remote waters west of the tip of South America and far south of Easter Island, somewhere around 60 degrees south and 110 degrees west, as Tiger Dan 925 decided to do, when it is actually centered approximately 25 degrees south and 135 degrees east. This is why his system didn't and couldn't work on a flat plane. Though he kept the longitudinal and latitudinal lines of the North Polar equidistant azimuthal map, he refused to use them for their designated purpose, that of being an integral part of a coordinate system. I'm not really sure what purpose they served him at all, and I'm not sure that Tiger Dan had any idea either. But then again, without the lines, he would have been stuck starting off with a blank model of a flat plane, and not a whole lot more. And it is possible that he may have decided to use them at the start for the purpose of orienting Glasgow and Heathrow airports in relation to the latitudinal lines. But then again, maybe not. He began to run into trouble early on, though he may not even have noticed. But he started to move airports and continents around willy-nilly with no concern whatsoever about their actual locations as they relate to their known coordinates. As he continued, he came to Australia. His triangulation system truly let him down here. I noticed two glaring inconsistencies with reality as soon as I laid eyes on his locations for Australia. And I say locations in plural because he had found it necessary to clone Australia, at least temporarily, and to move both copies of that continent far from its actual coordinates. Then it was all over but for some wishful thinking, mixed in with a dollop of ever-present conspiratorial ideas to give him a final faint hope of solving all his problems with a South Polar equidistant azimuthal map.
If the United Nations are essentially an inverted organisation, then they'd invert the map somehow. So I was looking at other maps and I got to this one, which is another azimuthal, but it's from the South Pole. It's a projection looking at the world from the South Pole.
When that failed, he had no more options left, and so he finally admitted defeat. For my next video, I will introduce you to a totally different approach to mapping from that employed by Tiger Dan. In doing so, I will be able to fill in more detail concerning how real maps can produce real and accurate results. And all this on the way to proving that the Earth is a globe. So don't forget to click on the subscribe button below and then the notification bell so you can be alerted as soon as I post that video to YouTube, hopefully in a few days' time.